The lungs of the earth are going to be given back to it, which is all these trees and all of these flowers, and there's going to be a whole total different vibration.
The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice in thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fella is come up against us.
Because the Lord is going to restore everything. You're going to have a total different vibration on the earth, a total different smell. You're not going to be walking down the street and smell shit and piss, and no foul odors or nothing like that, because the lungs of the earth are going to be given back to it, which is all these trees and all of these flowers, and it's going to be a whole total different vibration. You're going to see the aura and how things are going to change and how elevated things are going to be. Our senses are going to be heightened. Everything about us is going to be glorified.
The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice in thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fella is come up against us. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, by Hashem Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to our younger brothers, and peace and blessing and salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out there. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Shai. All right, and what I want to get into today, is a continuation on the book of First Corinthians. All right, we made it to the 13th chapter. Okay, and the Apostle Paul, is expounding, on the importance of charity. Being rooted in charity. Which is love. Okay. And, he's speaking from a perspective, of the Church of Corinth. They was big, on social status, big on clout. All right. And when they were coming to the faith, they brought that, their social status into the truth. And the Apostle Paul letting them know, the Church of Corinth, they was, receiving, spiritual gifts, and particular people were, more renowned than others, and you had, like I say, this social status atmosphere within the church, and they would treat, those that, were lesser in society, lesser in the church, or those that had a lesser gift, in the spirit, they would treat them differently in the church. All right. And the Corinthians, they will be puffed up, okay, by knowledge and, reputation, clap. Okay. So, some Jake, they was acting like assholes, man. And Apostle Paul, he addressed these things in the 13th chapter to ground everything in charity and true love. Okay. Understanding that, okay, with all these accolades and, all this knowledge that y'all getting and, spiritual gifts. Okay. Well, if it's not rooted in love, it's nothing. Okay. So when you go to 1 Corinthians 13:1, I'm gonna read this in the start off in the AMP, then I'll switch over. Let's start here in the AMP. Okay. So this is the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 13, verse 1. This is the AMP. It says, if I speak with tongues of men and of angels, all right, but have not love, okay. And then you go into a footnote for love. All right, and then speaking in tongues is speaking in different languages. Okay, not that madness of the church house, that folly. Okay, folks have demons on them, or they just be pretending, But speaking in tongues just means speaking in different languages. Okay, it's just a spiritual gift. Which today you have brothers, that are bilingual. They can speak, multiple languages. All right, that's those brothers' gifts. Okay, um, going into it says a profound thoughtfulness and unselfish concern for other believers, regardless of their circumstances or station in life. All right, thoughtfulness, man. You see, unselfish concern for other believers. Okay, regardless of circumstance and station in life, man. Because this truth is not about status, man. Okay, it's not about having clicks. Nah, man, it's sincere love all the way across the board. Okay, it said love for others, growing out. I said growing out of the Most High's love for me. Then I have become only a noisy, all right, gone, okay, or a clanging cymbal, just an annoying distraction. Okay, so if you have the gift, to be this, this powerful speaker, okay, but you don't have charity, then eventually you just become like a noisy instrument. Okay, because yeah, you can teach and you can edify, but if it's not rooted in love, okay, you become just all right an annoying distraction, just wanting to speak to be heard, okay, and not rooted in love of edification for the church, okay, for the brothers, all right, for the few sincere sisters, okay. So we have to keep everything rooted, okay, in love, man, and true charity. You see, in love comes in correction. All right, I say, listen, not that Disney movie fairy tale love. Okay, this is speaking of true love, which comes in, correction, which comes in, being, with sacrifice. Okay, comes with selflessness. Okay, consideration comes with warning. You see, rebuke. All this is a part of love. Love has, love is on the spectrum, man. So you can go from, a harsh rebuke, okay, or to where you have to sacrifice, okay, or be selfless in the situation, out of love for a brother, but it's still all love, all right, because it's pushing to the same end, and that's the best case scenario for each believer. Okay, 1 Corinthians 13:2 says, and if I have the gift of prophecy and speak a new message from the Most High to the people and understand all mystery and possess all knowledge, and if I have all right, sufficient faith so that I can remove mountains, but do not have love, reaching out to others, I am nothing. Okay, I am nothing. You see? So you can, go into these deep breakdowns and be on point with prophecy and break down, how things can play out. And, I'll say you can throw precepts off the backboard. Okay. windmilling, the understanding. Okay, you can have faith and believe. You see, but if it's not rooted in love, okay, then it can become what, vain. Okay, because if these gifts, because we have these gifts, all right, to afford the body. Okay, that's the reason we have these gifts to afford the body. It's always bigger than us, man. And that's something I have to continue to pray for, man. To look within, okay, making sure that I'm on point, not becoming vain, okay, proud. You see, because if we stray away from being rooted, okay, in that true love, that charity, you see, then like I said, we could become vain, empty, okay. It says, if I give all my possessions to feed the poor, and if I surrender my body to be burned and do not have love, it does it does me no good at all. Because there's certain things that can be done. It can seem like it's love or true charity, but then it's still vainglory. That's why Esau, he even the devil, when you have a U.S. aid. Okay, we give these money to countries and so-called starving, or undeveloped, okay, population. But he does that for the sake to say, "I did that. Look what I did." But he doesn't do anything in love. Esau gives things out, okay, but he not rooted in love, okay, because there's so much more that he can do what people wouldn't even have to. All right, be in those situations. That's true love, okay. You see, 'cause it can seem like love on the surface. Someone you're giving, you constantly giving to someone when you really can put them in a much better situation. That would be true love. You know, so true charity, true love is about putting the believers in the best situation possible, man. Because if you truly love someone, you don't want them super dependent on you like that. You want them to be self-sufficient. You want to build them up to be self-sufficient. Okay, you don't have to wait on me for information to teach you how to fish. The apostles, they taught us how to fish, man. You see, we didn't have to just wait on them. When it came to going and searching things out, they taught us how to fish. They taught us how to hunt in the spirit. When it came to researching and okay, you see, of course we're marching to their tune in the spirit. We follow them as they follow Yahweh. We stay within the parameters they've set up in the spirit when it comes to what we teach and you know how we teach. You see, all right, but they taught us, like to be self-sufficient, man. When it comes to holding down our office in the ministry, man. Okay, First Corinthians 13:4 said, "Love endures with patience and serenity. Love is kind and thoughtful and is not jealous or envious. Love does not brag and is not proud or arrogant, man." Okay, these are not the attributes of true, charity and true love. And one of the things, and we all struggle with particular things, man. But love is patience. It's serenity, is peaceful because, especially in the world, we go through betrayals, and in the truth, you go through betrayals, and you go through this, and you go through so many different characters that you deal with over the years, and your trust be all jacked up, and you, man, you make yourself vulnerable, then you looking crazy, so, and we go through these things, and we can we can become a way that isn't pleasing to the Father. It can make us, in a way to where um now it's a balance, because scriptures say be hasty not to give credit. Okay, so it's a balance, but then there's also a you have to trying to find a way to word it. So there's a balance, with being hasty, not being hasty to give someone credit, because you got to try spirits. Okay, but you don't want to cause past events to where you become so cold and unthoughtful. That's the word. You don't want to be push it to the point to where you just become unthoughtful. You become just impatient. Impatient in every situation. People. You don't want to have this mindset where people have one strike in this. You gotta you gotta be patient. Be patient. And if it's certain situations, the Lord intervene. He'll make a move. All right, to where it's supposed, when things play out, he'll send the judgment down for things to play out how they're supposed to play out, but we always have to reserve patience. Okay, that's the right word. Reserve patience and serenity. Be sharp, be on point. You know, I say don't be hasty to give credit. You see, but just be patient. Have the balance of having patience because we was once young and not in the truth and not knowing anything. We still young in the truth, learning and growing. But you remember, you have to see yourself, in brothers to a degree. Younger brothers coming in, you have to be patient and look at your decision making. All right. At that time period, you gotta be patient. The Lord show us like okay, because the Lord show us because one thing I learned, the Lord will show us how we look to other people. Okay, He'll put us in situation with particular brothers and particular men to show us how we looked at one time to other people. A brother be a mirror of how we were, and it'll make you be like, oh, but it take patience. That's why it's a thing of patience, man. Brothers growing, brothers fighting, brothers. We coming out of Babylon. We all coming out of Babylon. So there's a level of patience. I'm saying all that to say this, okay? Because patience is just a big thing. Like in this world, you will grow unthoughtful and impatient because of past experience, but you always have to reserve patience, and you don't have to just be this open book, okay, to have patience, okay? So I pray that makes sense. All right, but it said love endures with patience and serenity. Love is kind and thoughtful and is not jealous or envious. Love does not brag, all right, and is not proud or arrogant. Yeah, love is not telling you how much I made a month. Okay, I got cars and houses, and I got this going on, and my life outside of YouTube and all that. Love don't do that. True charity don't do that, man. Because what did that do? You know, that ain't. I did this. This was my first debate. We're gonna have, an hour. But we're gonna have a memorial. For my first debate. And you see, that ain't true charity, man. Okay, that ain't the spirit of charity. You see, it says it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not provoked, nor overly sensitive and easily angered. It does not take into account, all right, wrong and dirt. Okay, so going back to patient, which is easily angered. Because something in this in the Lord, you know, you would think, okay, because sometimes somebody will be off. Okay, and sometimes the Lord is using someone to test our patience. Sees we still sensitive to particular things. You know, Because like I say, when when you're offended, when you ain't feeling something, you'll become rude, quick, So I say, pray more to always look inwardly, It's one of the main things I get, from reading this is to pray more, to look inwardly in every situation. Okay. What we can do better, what is being exposed in us, instead of being in the spirit of an accuser. Okay. And I said there's certain instances, you peep things and the Lord reveal it, and then the Lord judge. But see, even then, if we're still showing love in the situation, we're blameless. Yahushua was blameless with Judas. Knowing what he knew about Judas, he still had to show the love of a brother all the way to that moment. Okay? And say it's not self-seeking, because we're not here to, to be our own marketing team. Jake and the Spirit, like all they want to do is market themselves. They just their own marketing and promotion team. It's all about how they can market themselves, how they can put themselves in a position to be seen or heard, or, they always got some selfish, motive with everything that they do, man. It's not charity, man. We're not here self-seeking, man. Okay. It said it does not rejoice at injustice, but rejoices with truth when right and truth prevail. Yeah, man. So charity rejoices over truth when right and truth prevail, man. Okay. Even if something is done wrong to someone that we disagree with, man, we don't rejoice in that, man. We rejoice in the truth going forward. We rejoice in Yahushua. All right, how about Yahushua being exalted, man, brothers? Being edified, being building, being built up. The church being edified, built up. We rejoice in those things, man. Prophecy coming to pass. Okay, it said love bears all. Okay, regardless of what comes, believes on things. All right, looking for the best in each one. All right, hopes in all things, remaining steadfast during difficult times, enduring all things without weakening, man. And we're coming into some times where charity is going to go a long way. You see, being rooted in charity over these years, man. Because see, you can't just conjure up charity, okay, in the hour, okay, and be set for Jacob's trouble. No, we've been rooted in charity this whole time. The men, the brothers, the men that the Lord has had us around. Okay, everything's been rooted in charity, man. Okay, because they say that charity is gonna be clutch in the times we coming into. And see, that's why the scriptures speak about the love of many wax cold. That's why these people, hey, they're set up. They're fragile. This society is so fragile because everyone is so selfish, narcissistic. Okay, only have their own interests in mind, man. So it's gonna be a fragile. All right, it's gonna be fragile in these times, man. That's why people just finna get ready to, to counsel each other out. Okay. But amongst the body, the Lord has us growing in truth, charity, sincerity. Okay. It said love never fails, it never fades nor ends, but as prophecies, they will pass away. Yeah, because when it speak about these prophecies, let's go here. It's not speaking about, the prophets written, failing. But let's matter of fact, before I go there. Okay, I just typed in love another, and go straight into it. So when you go into love another, you go straight into the Gospels, man. St. John 13:34 says, I'm giving you a new commandment that you love one another just as I have loved you. So you too are to love one another. And Yahweh Shai, he was selfless, man. You know, he sacrificed. He didn't deal with family, women. No, he sacrificed that to be available for the body. You see, that was selflessness. He gave an example of selflessness, man. Okay. Now, you know, every brother got their proper gift. Okay. But even within that, whatever situation we in, there's times when we got to sacrifice for the good of the body. That's love. So he was showing us the concept of true love the whole time Yahushua was here. You know, so he sacrificed personal things to be available, you know, for the believers, man, beginning with the disciples. Okay, he wasn't trying to be popular, okay, or famous in Rome. He could have been. He could have been the most. He could have been the biggest name ever in Rome, in Roman history. Okay, well, nah, he didn't want that. He was there, all right, to correct the wrong. You know, out of love for the body, he knew he had to be that sacrifice. He showed love all the way to his last breath, man, being that sacrifice, man. Okay? It said, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you have love and unselfish concern for one another, man. Love and unselfish concern. You see? Because we was cultivated in a grimy society, man. It's America toxic as hell, man. And some brothers got to grow out of it. You know, that's why I say that patience come in. You know, certain things, certain flaws that was embedded in us in this society, and you know, brothers got to grow out of. You know, you sister, you got shit y'all got to grow out of, man. You know, that's one of the phases of healing is recognizing, like, you know, I say playing victim gets you nowhere. Like, nah, we got shit that we got to grow out of that was embedded in us in this society, man. Okay, reading on. So when you even go 1 John 15:12, it said, "This is my commandment." So this is a commandment from Yahushua, that you love and unselfishly seek the best for one another, just as I have loved you. Okay, so this is a commandment, man. This is how Yahushua wants us to be. You know, to be unselfishly seek the best for one another. You know, we come into the time we have to get uncomfortable for each other out of love, out of charity. You know, you see, hey, bro, your house might be the go-to spot in these times, man. Okay, brothers might, you see, be in your spotlight, a Rap City basement. You know, I don't know if y'all remember that episode when Cash Money was, you know, in Rap City basement. They, you know, Lil Turk was on the pool table, Wayne was all on the, you know, in the chair, like, damn, you know. You see, but hey, it is what it is, man. It's all out of love, cause hey, this is a temporary situation, man. All right, your routine, you know, tea and coffee time might not, it might not be so routine in the times to come. Certain routines that you didn't got used to, and, you know, you know, this the time I do my 100 jumping jacks. You know, it might be interrupted, man. Okay, this is Romans 13:8. It says, "Oh, nothing to anyone except to love and seek the best for one another. For he who unselfishly loves his neighbor has fulfilled the essence of the law." It says the essence of the law. Jacob, you know, talk about the law, where your fringes at, where your dress at, sister, where your head wrap. You know, are you keeping the commandments? Okay, but Jake not rude in charity, man, because Jake's a, you know, speak for hours about the commandments and the law. Okay, but then to slander their brother or teach false doctrine to their congregation, man, that's not love, man. Okay, because the law is rooted in love. When you go into those laws, it's rooted in love. You know, if you had a son and that nigga was rebellious, didn't want to do nothing, didn't want to be nothing, nigga just wanted to kick it and be a liability. Well, guess what? Out of love for everybody else, you would take this nigga to the elders and that's it. That's the end. That's his last chapter. You would do that out of love for everyone else, so this nigga won't grow up and be a burden. Get somebody daughter pregnant and just ruin another man's property and nah, come here, come here. You look at this nigga, come here, and take his ass to the elder and he out of here, man. But you do that out of love for everybody else, man. So this nigga won't be a burden. Okay? Something might happen to you as a man and it's just this nigga and your wife there, man. This nigga gonna be a terror unto her, man. Okay, so out of love, you grab this nigga up and he out of here, man. Okay? Your brother died, he left a wife behind, he left no heirs. You would take her on. First off, you would take her into a house so she will have a covering, she will have a head. Okay? Then you will go into her to raise up, okay, an heir. Okay? You see, for inheritance, man. To keep that line going, and then you would do that because that love will be shown for generations. That act will ripple love throughout generations, man. So the law is rooted in love when you go into the law. Okay? So Jake talking about law, but Jake don't understand what true love is, what true charity is, man. Okay, and we can go through other things in the law and root it back to love, but just giving those examples, man. Okay? So let's read this again. Romans 13:8 says, "Oh, nothing to note to anyone except to love, all right, and seek the best for one another." All right. So like I said, for he who unselfishly loves, all right, his neighbor has fulfilled the essence of the law relating to one's fellow man. Okay. So you go into the essence of the law, man. It's all rooted in love for your fellow Israelite. All right. Man and woman and children and generation that is not even on the scene out of love for them. Jacob did what he did. All right. Sarah and Jacob, not Shalaka, Rebecca and Jacob put their play together. That was out of love for the generation to come. All right. To supplant Esau out to bless. That's love. That was done so many, thousands of years ago, man. And look where we at today, where Esau finna be removed. All right, and we finna come into an eternal righteous kingdom, man. You see, that was based on love way back, man. And I still, me speaking as a man, Rebecca was looking at that nigga Esau. She seen some shit with that nigga, man. It was all in the spirit because she was told at birth, that the elder shall serve the younger, so she knew the play. But there's no telling what she seen with that nigga Esau out in the. She was not feeling that nigga, man. But First Corinthians 13:8, Jacob wrestled with the angel, till he refused to start wrestling with the angel till he was blessed. That was out of love for his descendants, man. Our people is the most charitable, loving people, man. The Israelites, man. That's one of the attributes we got from our Father. The Most High is harsh. He's great in correction, but he's great in compassion too, man. And both of them are rooted in love. Okay. First Corinthians 13:8, it said, "Charity never faileth." All right, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. So it's not speaking of prophecy of the MOTB failing or World War III when Jacob's trouble. It's not talking about those things failing. It's speaking on things of, okay, for example, like 2020, we thought it was never coming back open. We thought this devil was gonna ride it out, but he didn't open. So those, we were prophesying like this, in the spirit, like this was it, but it opened up. So it wasn't time, you know. But guess what? We still got to show charity. So there's certain times where you think, okay, this is it, let's go. Even with the shutdown, we thought, okay, let's get it. You nigga ain't gonna never open the government, nigga. You know? But then, he's back opening. Things are still, falling. You see? But certain prophecies that we think that this gonna be, okay, this that domino, and it don't fall, eventually it's gonna fall. But there's certain things that we harp on and it don't happen, But that doesn't mean that the prophecies fail, but certain things that, we speculating, as being, the linchpin, it don't happen. When Trump killed General Soleimani, we thought it was war. They killed the Iranian general, under, one on the first term under Trump. We thought it was war for sure, but it wasn't that time. And guess what? All this time has passed, and we still gotta be fervent, in our charity. He said, whether there be tongues, they shall cease. All right. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. Okay. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. Okay. So, we have full understanding of what the Lord wants us to understand. You see? And there's certain things as we verse 10 said, but when that which is perfect to come, then that which is in part shall be done away, because we're going to know everything perfectly at the coming of Yahushua. There's certain things that are becoming clear. We know it's going to be Jacob's trouble. Okay? But exactly what's going to be the event that really take this thing, well, we don't know that part exactly, but we know it's going to be a Jacob's trouble. We know the chariots coming. What they look like on the inside, we don't know. Okay? You see? I mean, the exact number of angels is going to be innumerable. But see, when Yahushua comes, we're going to know everything perfectly, man. As we're perfected, got those new bodies, we're going to be perfected in understanding. But the portion that the Lord has given us, okay, we fully understand it. We have 100% of what's needed to be delivered. Okay? And we're going to be complete, knowing everything at the time of Yahushua. All right, I believe that's they do the running. Yep, the Deuteronomy 29:29. It says, the secret things belong unto the Lord our power, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. Okay, so there's things that belong to the Most High that's not meant for us to know. Okay, and then there's mysteries. Okay, there's things that are mysterious to this world that are revealed unto the elect, beginning with the prophets, man. They are for us to know. And we have 100% of their understanding of the things revealed unto us from on high. Okay? That's the precept that. So let's go back to 1 Corinthians. Okay, 13 and 11 said, when I was a child, I spake as a child, understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. So this truth is about constantly growing and maturing. Constantly growing and maturing. You see, when we came in, we had a childlike mind when it came to understanding. Okay? And as we mature in this thing, our expectations change, our desires change. Okay, we begin to understand more or what we're a part of. Okay, childish things get put away. Okay, that's why I say gimmicks and trying to be popular. That's childish. Okay, you see. Now the Lord, has his men, maturing in heavier matters, man. Which is this transition of this kingdom. That's our concern. That's our focal point. Okay, trying to clickbait you and all that's childish, man. Okay, here just to to argue and that's childish. Okay, debating. We don't got to debate. We got the truth. We building. We building over here. We don't have to stop building to debate with niggas, man. We building. All right, the elect is being edified and built up, man. How was on the way back, man? We don't have time to stop this train and argue with you niggas about what we know is right. Okay, we're gonna defend the gospel. We're gonna edify. All right, and because we the Lord God to where we can take the folly, all right, of these children, okay, and edify, man. Verse 12 said, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even also as I am known." Yeah, because as the scriptures say, let's go here to it's at Colossians. Yeah, Colossians 3:1. It says, "If you then be risen with Hamashiach," let me get this in. See what it says in the AMP. So there's certain things, that's vague when it comes to prophecy, but these things are going to become more clear, and when we change, all right, we're going to understand everything perfectly, man. Okay, it says, let me get to the point. All right, yep, this is Colossians 3:3. It says, matter of fact, I'm gonna read down into it. Colossians 3:1 said, "Therefore, if you have been raised with Hamashiach to a new life, sharing his resurrection." All right, like I said, a new hope, new expectation that's beyond this world. Before we was awakened to the truth, our hope, our expectation was all tied to this world. Okay, but now we have a new expectation. It said, "Keep seeking the things that are above, where Yahushua is seated at the right hand, okay, of the Most High. Set your mind and keep focused habitually on the things above, the heavenly things, not on the things that are on the earth, which have only temporal value." Okay, for you died to this world, and your new real life is hidden with Yahushua in the Most High. So see, we're gonna know fully. See, we're gonna be able to see ourselves how the Most High sees us, man. When we're changed, you see, we're gonna be able to see ourselves as the Most High sees us, man. When we're changed, man, at the coming of Yahushua. Okay, when Yahushua, who is our life, appears, okay, the second coming appears, then you will also appear with him in glory, man. So when we're changed, we're gonna see ourselves as the Most High sees us, man. Who he sees us for. Okay, and we're growing into that. Okay, so let's go back here. First Corinthians, okay, 13 and 12. It says, go back to KJV, finish it out. All right, First Corinthians 13 and 12. It says, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even, and also am I known." All right, as also I am known. Okay, as you've spoken to us, knowing ourselves as the Most High seeth us when we change. And now abide in faith, hope, charity. These three, but the greatest of these, all right, is charity. Okay. So, Lord will, all right, you brothers, all right, then you sisters edified. Once again, I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem Kadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers, and peace and blessing salutation to the hopeful Shalom.